You're welcome back to Morning Express. Now let's open up the floor for discussion on the program today. Joining us virtually is Mr. Seun Oni, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Courier, and also a member of the First Estate of the REM, a patriotic Nigerian, and a public affairs analyst. A very good morning to you, Mr. Seun. Thank you so much for availing yourself for this discussion once again.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's delve right into the matter. It's no news that Nigeria and the US are currently having a face off, and there was actually news that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was set to meet US Vice President JD Vance, but the presidency has come out to debunk that news. What is your position on this entire, uh, national security concern since it started a couple of days ago?
Thank you. Uh, we are starting on this diplomatic bit that we need to put into perspective. The first thing is that we have enough security on our hands as a country. We have been battling terrorism for more than a decade, and we have not been able to decimate them. Coupled with terrorism, we have banditry, we have kidnapping, we have the ESN, IPOB agitation in the southeast. We also have what have been touted the herders farmers clashes, which majorly is in the middle belt region of the country. Not forgetting what we call cattle rustling in part of Zamfara that has now grown full blown into kidnapping for ransom. Having said that, the current culture of Christian genocide is that filled shortly after 2023 general election laws. Unfortunately, people who thought they would get justice from our court did not get what they felt they should get. And of course, anyone subjects any to the court arbitration, unlike the alternative dispute resolution mechanism, should, I think, lawyers ordinarily we advise their client that it can go either way. You can win the case or you can lose the case. But many who lost at especially the presidential elections have continued to fan the embers of discord. And unfortunately, many people don't know that the world has gone global. When you keep on, especially for a number of us who are very active on social media, we sometimes don't know the power of hashtags. Who hashtag actually is very powerful because it can revibrate using some of the tools across media. You discover that that tweet, that trend to go beyond your borders. You are operating in a world that has gone global, and the footprint of hacks can travel across so just what you call simple hashtags, rhetorics, Christian genocide, genocide in Nigeria, and so unfortunately, politicians, especially in the United States, who are itching very close to their midterm elections, are also looking for subjects they can latch out on to win back some of their constituents that they have lost. often due to other domestic imprints that have not gone well with their constituency. Unfortunately, they found a number of in people like Ted Cruz and a number of them. And so they simply picked that and began to look for ways to bring in some of the people who had been very vocal about that subject matter. So they got a few clerics, a few politicians, and some of the booths they had on the ground simply amplified what was coming as seen by, what you can call pained followers. But here we are. The United States president picked such rhetorics. We saw the same, he did the same thing with South Africa, he did it with Mexico, he did it with a number of countries, Canada, China, Brazil, and what they simply did was to beat back and bring out facts to counter narratives that are actually not true in the light of the domestic front. And so we have found ourselves in this situation. My concern was first the reaction of the federal government. It's a bit kneel-jack. The reaction was not well thought out. I see no reason why we should placate Trump in spite of the very harsh words he used. You know, I think we need to put facts before him. We saw Cyril president of South Africa, who did the same. Eventually, in that meeting, Trump was the loser. Ramaphosa was as the champion. That is exactly what the president's media should start. Uh, let's begin to see. Maybe we embed some coverage of the operation. It will be clear that means are not siding with Islamic jihadis to kill Christians, as some have touted. Uh,
Now, Mr. Seun
we
Oni,
need to
while
show
we
people
acknowledge the
died.
fact that some of these allegations made, some of these comments made by U.S. politicians and people peddling rumors of a Christian genocide in Nigeria are all planned and orchestrated towards achieving a certain goal. As the presidency had termed it, it's a game to them. If we take a look at the time when Trump had, issued a threat to South Africa, and President Ramaphosa visited him, that seemed to have quelled the entire tension. Yet, when Nigerians heard that President Bola Tinubu would be visiting the US, there was a little sigh of relief, only to wake up this morning to hear that that was an entirely false news. What can the federal government do going forward to ensure that they bring an end to this misconception and also quell this fire that is already brewing?
I think the news was not entirely false. The news was not entirely false. The sources we have at the villa. What actually happened was the presidency wanted a presidency to presidency conversation, which was what we saw with Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa. Of course, you knew that theirs was even more escalated than ours. Their envoy to the US was actually sent back to South Africa before that meeting took place. And several unprintable words were exchanged between the official spokesperson of the President of the United States and the envoy of Africa to the United States of America. But in our case, when the Villa initiated, from what I got, initiated such a presidency to presidency conversation, the worst case, you expect the vice president will receive the president and they have conversation at that level. But what the feelers they got from the White House was that they will have to have that conversation with Senator Ted Cruz. And that is where the villa had to pull the plug. It was condescending. Of course, you should know that Ted Cruz would definitely simply just make a caricature of such visit. And that was why the presidency had to beat a retreat. But I'm aware that conversations are actually going on at the highest level through the US consulate in Nigeria to ensure that there is high meeting, more of a presidency to presidency conversation. But we must also add that one of the reasons why we've not been able to manage this as we ought to is, of course, the failure of the president. I'm very strong on this to appoint diplomats at the level of ambassadors and envoys who could sit and speak, not career officers, people will call charge the affairs, who are simply civil servants engaging on behalf of our country. I want to believe that we have learnt our lessons. There are certain conversations that we don't allow to degenerate to this level we have found ourselves, because our envoys would have been invited, they would have had meetings at that high level, and some remedial actions would have been taken before we start having a
There's news that the
president who.
president is swiftly trying to appoint envoys, especially with regards to the United States. Is this move a little too late? Also, what is the Senate doing? In terms of engaging with the American Senate to debunk this news of a Christian genocide in the country.
Well, let me say first, like we say, it is better late than never. It's the right thing, and I expect that to be done with in a fortnight. Worst case, we should have our emissaries, respected people, sent to some of those very strategic countries. There is no reason why Nigeria should not have an envoy to the UK, for instance, for almost 3 years. There's no reason why we shouldn't have one in US, China, those strategic countries. It was a serious mistake on the part of Mr. President, and I want to believe he has learned his lesson. Coming to our National Assembly, if history is anything to go by, our National Assembly have not been able to present itself in a way and manner that it gains the respect that it deserves when it works or want to have this type of bilateral conversation. History has actually shown it. I can recall in recent history where our National Assembly engages in a conversation at this level and we got something meaningful. What we usually have often are simply photo ops, but having real policy reversals because we engage with the Senate or what have you. In any case, the US Senate and US House of Reps, I think they have their hands full. The nation is still undergoing a historic shutdown and they've not been able to agree on anything meaningful. So even if we want to engage, I really don't see any progress there. So the best way to go about this is at the president to president level. Worst case, we have our president having a meeting with JD Vance, and let's see what progress we can make from there. Because all we need is strategic partnership, not a beat down like a school teacher beating a pupil who had actually misbehaved in the classroom.
All right, Mr. Sean, let's move on to yet another dimension of this discussion. Now, it's concerning a meeting between the National Security Advisor and the Service Chiefs. We have seen series of meetings being held with heads of security agencies, including the DSS, the NIA, and quite a number of them. And the focal point of these meetings is to ensure that this matter is arrested before it escalates into a full-blown invasion or a full-blown war. Because, of course, if there's an invasion, Nigeria's military will retaliate, and then it becomes a very big problem. What do you think that the military can do in regard to this, beyond just a show of force? Are there more diplomatic ways that our security agencies can handle this matter?
I heard you say our military will retaliate. Retaliate.
Well, I believe we certainly won't fold our hands and watch our country being invaded.
As a name that I really mentioned that if they invade, Nigeria is going to fight back. And I was just laughing. Fight back? Who exactly? U.S. Army? That's a joke taken too far. We can't fight back. But I think it's actually a shame that we waited for US to come with this type of condescending remarks. I read the post by the president on Truth Social. He had actually copied it on other social media feeds. I read it on his Facebook also yesterday, calling our nation quite unprintable names. It's quite unfortunate, but I wrote an article yesterday and I was very clear. There is a Yoruba adage that says that when there is no crack, or if there is no crack in a wall, the lizard will have no place to hibernate. We have cracks in our countries. Unfortunately, our military successively has failed us. I saw people making passing comments about the propriety of the president relieving some of the service chiefs a few days ago. And my question immediately to a number of them was, why do you want to keep someone performing? Command is performing. I heard such as one of the service chiefs, the welfare through very and anybody, it might be fear of it, but we are not seeing result as Nigerians that can make us go to sleep with our two eyes closed. And it's not just a northeast, north central, or what have you issue. No, it's a Nigerian issue. I stay in Kubwa, Buhari. Uh, at some point, it became the epicenter of kidnappings in the FCT. And we have service chiefs. We have people manning the police, manning the army. So the meeting, I think it's on that they are meeting because Trump said something. It shouldn't be. Our military should go and re-strategize and ensure that this type of lackadaisical approach to framing internal security breaches are actually nipped in the bud. Wherever there is an attack, they should re-roll them. Go there, make sure the terrorists are pushed back, decimate them. And it's quite unfortunate when we sit down, we are negotiating and saying we want very known kidnappers, beat and terrorists that we're having conversation with them whether they should. No, we have tried the carrot and stick approach, and we have not. It has not worked for more than a decade. Especially military of Africa gain that pride that we have on the continent. Our military must be found not talking. And that was the challenge I had with the immediate past chief of defense staff. You don't go on a television and you are doing motivational talk as a military sir. No, you go and let action speak. And my charge to from the NSA to the chief of the other service chiefs, let your actions speak. We don't want to see any of them hugging camera and trying to pontificate and try to explain security is this and that. That's what we want to hear. We want to see actual results, and Nigerians want to see actual.
Mr. Seun Oni, one of the some of the concerns that our security agencies have been raising in the last couple of weeks owing to these allegations of Christian genocide is the fact that they are co-collaborators of these heinous crimes within the communities that are being attacked. For example, in Yellowwater, we heard that the reprisal attacks happened after some Fulani herders had been killed and their cattle rustled, and they had retaliated, and then the media took news of the retaliation and not news of the initial attack. How do we nip this issue to the board in addressing some of these indigents or community dwellers who collaborate either with the attackers or attack first before there is a reprisal and then the reprisal becomes the topic of focus? How do we balance this up?
I've been very vocal, largely very deep understanding of the context of some. Plateau State is at the epicenter of this alleged Christian way. Precise. I schooled in the University of Jos, and my first 3 years, I stayed in Abuja hostel, but I was years course. It lasted for 5 years because of the crisis. Several months, Unijos was locked, was shut between the 2005 and 2010 when I eventually graduated studying economics. The remaining 2 years, I actually stayed off campus, like we call it. But something was quite striking. Why I was on campus, I actually did not know that. But when I was off campus, it was glaring that um, the insecurity actually had two sides to it. It was more like a coin where you have the head and the tail. The narrative often is that you just hear the head, you not hear the tail, or you hear the tail, you not hear the head, like you're saying. But I'm quite aware that there were Christian communities who actually, on a monthly basis, on a regular basis, contribute money in order to buy arms under the guise of themselves. But unfortunately, the danger in doing that is when there is a perceived threat, because to read someone between the lines, unfortunately become the unfortunately, and that's what we have seen that has made the crisis escalate. Am I saying people did not come to attack them? No, that would be unfair to them. People came, and because they do this, and I'm on front because they really don't trust our military again. Let me pick on the Yelwata incidents that you used as a case study. The community are receiving credible intelligence that they were going to be attacked, actually sent a signal to the military. But what we learned was that the military came several hours after the attack. That is the reason why people will now resort to self-help. So we have communities who also bought arms and stopped. We even had religious communities begging their members, like the way you collect offerings, zakat, Muslims call it, on both sides. So it's not a Christian issue, it's not just a Muslim issue. All such monies to buy arms, telling you what somebody told me. I am telling you something. One of the guys there, even while we were still on the years to be able to de-escalate this, and you use it once, and you see victory, the that comes from some usually you from because it's in a den and you are able to arm yourself with AK-47 and the person is called, you're able to put the person down. The next time you bother calling the army, you just think. But unfortunately, the person you gunned down weapons. And when they are coming, they also come with the same force. And that's what we have seen. Before now, it used to be 1 death, 3 deaths, but we started seeing people gone down on a mass scale. It tells you the sophistry of the type of weapons they use on both sides. And so that is where our military have to come in. The community must gain the confidence of the military that if people come to attack them, they will be there to prevent and ward off the attackers. If they see it maybe for a year, if you now ask them to bring the stockpile of arms, they will be willing because the actions they've seen results. And so this goes beyond the president just going to a meeting in the city. We saw in Makodi, we saw in Jos during the burial of the APC chairman's mom. The president is now talking with, you can't do anything serious with that type of meetings. The military must go back to those communities, win the confidence of the community that they are there to protect them. That the next time when they place a the trip that is supposed to take them an hour, they are there in 45 minutes. When you now have the conversation that you can't do reprisal again because we are here to protect you, they will believe you. But you ask them not to
No,
do reprisal,
interestingly, I was just about
and
to
they
come to
will
this
show up
matter.
after they have been decimated. No one trusts you.
I was about to come to this matter using the Plateau State Governor as a case study that has been heavily criticized a lot of times for coming out, hogging cameras to say a lot of unprintable things about the state of Plateau State, particularly, and also the state of the security situation in Nigeria. And some analysts have attributed the escalation of this situation to some comments made by individuals like the Plateau State Governor, whom a lot of people listen to. Also, on the other hand, the Nigerian military mentioned something about the same plateau not having accessible roads in communities where these attacks often happen. So it takes soldiers longer number of hours to access the communities when there's an alarm that has been raised or when they are being called. Are our governors responsible enough to ensure that they, create proper infrastructure in terms of roads to also enable security agencies to carry out their duties appropriately, rather than just crying and screaming in the media saying that there is insecurity and there is killings? What is also the place of the governors in ensuring that this is done?
Maybe before I go to the place of governors, let me quote the highly respected leadership expert, John C. Maxwell. He said, you can either make excuses or when you are making success, there is no room for excuses. When you are making excuses, of course, there will not be room for success. We have seen our military just become so full of excuses, and we are not seeing actual success in the job they are hired and paid to do. The roads across Plateau in some of these areas that are being attacked, this is that. I think that's just making excuses. If they really want to stop these attacks, I think we are sophisticated, advanced enough to get it done. Having said that, our leaders often, not just the Plateau governor, we've had several other leaders across the country not being very temperate with the type of words they use. But the only way or the only reason you can adduce for that, in my opinion, is that it's just easy to play politics with things like this for convenience. But sadly, they don't count the consequences of playing politics with security incidents. What you do, is going to be your carelessness versus lives lost. So I agree that some of our leaders are actually culpable. The incessant that we have seen. You might want to tell me that Christians are predominant in Plateau State. Agreed. But there is a sizable number of Muslims in that state. And I think he's governor of the majority and the minority. It's also the same for Benue State. And I can also say that for all the northern states that have been plagued by insecurity. Sometimes they rush to the camera. I know they are human beings. Their emotions take the better part of them sometimes when we have some of these gory incidences. But that's actually the burden of leadership. You must make sure that your words are measured. You must ensure that you are also circumspect with the type of things you say, knowing that as a leader, there are people, whatever you say, without sieving it, because they hold you in high esteem. When this incidents between the beat back between the US and America happens, I was just on the lookout to see whether for once politicians will be more patriotic than following parochial path. Because in this sense, with Trump as a Nigerian politician, so that you can be seen to be siding with a superpower. But if the crisis in Nigeria, God forbid, like we say, get worst, there will not be even govern. Of course, you know our constitution also permits uh, the times of very serious insecurity, the person who is in power can actually use that provision of the constitution to stage more. And so those are the things that you have to look at. And I'm glad that I want to believe that common sense prevailed. Virtually all parties have actually agreed that what we needed is to unite as a country, face the insecurity that escalating has become, and that doing uh,
All right, Mr. Sean, let's still talk about one more issue before we let you out of the before we let you go. The Chadian government, we hear, has decided to close its borders with Nigeria over this possible military action in the country. And also, on the other hand, this particular threat has sparked investor fears as economists are split on the impact it would have on Nigeria. This is Chad within the Sahel region closing its borders. Who knows? It could be Nigeria tomorrow. Cameroon might decide to do the same. Benin Republic could also do the same. Is this proper? And is it also time for Nigeria to maybe, just maybe, seek help from its neighbors in combating this impending doom?
um, like we say in economics, ceteris paribus. All things are not always the same, even though we cite that very often. The market, of course, I expected it to be impacted, but good enough. The impact was very, I thought we were going to plunge deep, going southward, but I really did not see that. It was great compared with President Trump Chad. Is just of what or the action, the next line of action of terrorists who are actually operating along the flanks of their border. With what Trump had said, and a follow up by Pete Hegseth that they are preparing. Of course, you expect the terrorists to start quickly relocating some of their men and also their machines as much as possible. And if you are doing that, that means they will definitely leave Nigeria and move to other places. So it's just a smart thing to do. But in all of these uh, back and forth, we've actually not heard anything from the African Union, and we have not heard anything from ECOWAS. And that for me is a bit concerning. because when your most populated country is being threatened by a superpower and the umbrella organization, maybe I should add that Nigeria is actually the highest financier of ECOWAS, and we are, I think, among the first two financiers of AU, and you just fold your arms and you did not say anything, that for me is a bit of a concern. But that our market will not be impacted with this type of pronouncement from the White House, we expect it. Everyone in the market will be impacted. Somehow we have been able, I think the worst is behind us, and the right is that these guys are decimated. They have become not just nuisance, they are actually enemies of Nigeria. And they have a duty to put them out and do that as fast as possible.
Well, in terms of protecting our economic image and prowess as well as a nation, and also to stop this investor fear from being from snowballing into what might have detrimental effects on the country. What can our economic giants and handlers of the economy do to salvage the situation? We have talked about the military, we have talked about the executive, we have talked about governors, we've even talked about the citizenry, but let's talk economics now. What can our handlers do to ensure investor confidence even in the midst of this storm?
Sadly, there is very little our economic handlers can do. Um, I'm trying to get the right economic term for it. Factors that are not within your control. There are factors that are within the control of our economic handlers. And thus far, like I told you, we have done that. First, our market, our money market is now a digitized market. It means that any trading that is happening here is not just a Nigerian trade. The same way some of us we trade Neki, we trade Dow, we trade S&P, and some of those other markets across other nations of the world. Despite the time zones, you see traders staying awake to follow the trend. That's also how they follow the market in Nigeria. So it's now a global market. And any statement, for instance, we can't control what the president of the United States says. If we have a meeting, even at the level of presidency, we can't control the outcome. And those things definitely will impact the market positively or negatively. But what is in the control of Nigeria, not the economic handlers, is that we begin to reshape the narrative. Areas that have been so termed Christian genocide taking place, and let's see our armies go to those places, comb those places. And maybe in the next few weeks, we don't hear any negative report, or we begin to hear of arrests, of killings of terrorists, decimating them across the length and breadth of the country. I want to believe that the same US will also give us our flowers. People like Senator Ted Cruz, who had simply majored on running down the leadership of Nigeria and, of course, tagging us more of an Islamic country, will also begin to commend us. It will also impact on our market. That's why I said thus far our economic handlers have done the best they could do. The ball is now in the court of our military and those who give them directive to see what they do to now help the great job that our economic handlers, both on the monetary and the fiscal side, have done. I think that's the junction we have found ourselves now.
All right, Mr. Seun Oni, quite a very interesting junction to end the discussion. We must thank you. It's been a pleasure having this in-depth analysis. Always wonderful to have you join us on Morning Express.
Always a delight to be here, and do have a beautiful day ahead too. Thank you.
Thank you. That has been Mr. Seun Oni, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Courier, speaking to us on a particular matter of national concern, talking about the Nigeria versus US face-off and the hefty allegations of a Christian genocide being enabled by the Nigerian government, claims that the Nigerian government has vehemently denied. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll shift gears away from international matters to politics, particularly mirroring it down to the People's Democratic Party and the most recent defection of the Bayelsa State Governor, Governor Diediri, from the PDP to the APC, while citing his reasons. Take a break. When we come back, Morning Express continues.